All right, Algebra 1B students, welcome to part 3 of lesson 9.5. This is where we finish our work on completing the square. And in today's video, we're going to answer the question, what if we have more than one x squared? Remember that our original conversation about completing the square revolved around one x squared box and a certain number of x's on either side of it. Right? This was our picture. And then we, in this case, we're down 1, 2, 3, 4, minus 4 units there. Okay? If we have more than one x squared, for example, in this problem here, 4x squared, how do we deal with that and with completing the square in this case? Well, we're going to solve this problem together, and then I'll give you one to do, and then we should be prepared for this one little wrinkle that you'll see in your homework tomorrow. Now, if I want to solve that quadratic equation by completing the square, the first thing that I have to do is move the 10 to the other side so that it looks like we can complete the square, right? We're looking for something like this, where it's something x squared plus something x with no numbers attached, so that we can complete the square there, okay? And that's exactly what we can do by just adding 10 to both sides, because right now my equation is 4x squared plus 6x minus 10. So if I add 10 to both sides, plus 10, plus 10, I end up here at 4x squared plus 6x equals 10. And now this looks like a problem that I can complete the square with. All right, so step 1 is to move the 10 to the other side, just like we were doing the past couple days. Step 2 is we need this to look just like it did yesterday. So we're going to divide everything by the a value to make it equal to 1x squared. So what I mean is this. If I have 4x squareds in this case, I will divide every number here, here, and here by 4 so that I get here with just 1x squared on the bottom. So 4 divided by 4, as I said, is 1. That's good news for us. We want it to be 1x squared so that we can complete the square. 6 divided by 4 is 1.5. 10 divided by 4 is 2.5. Okay, so I now have an equation where it's 1x squared plus something x equals 2.5, equals some number. Now, with these decimals that are most often going to be involved in these problems, the solving gets a little bit more complicated slightly, because you're going to deal with more decimals and squaring decimals and things like that, but we have calculators to help us with the actual number work here. So once we have divided by 4 to make it 1x squared instead of 4x squared, now we need to complete the square. We need to complete the square as we have been doing. Unfortunately, the picture doesn't make any sense here because I have 1.5 x's. I have 1.5 x's to space evenly on either side of my x squared. So what I need to do is I need to put half of those on each side. Right? What is half of that? Well, b over 2 is equal to 0.75. So I have 0.75 x's to put on each side of my square, if I'm thinking back to my picture. Otherwise, b divided by 2 is 0.75. So we end up here at x plus 0.75 squared. But we have to remember that we don't have that whole square. We're short by a whole bunch. Really, in this case, it's not that much, but it is our b over 2 value squared. So 0.75 squared is what we're short by. That becomes 0.565. So the completing the square process is just like it has been in the past, but now we're dealing with more decimals. and we can't use our picture quite as easily here. Okay, but when we complete the square with this equation from up here, we end up right down here. Okay, we cut the 1.5 in half. It's 0.75x plus 0.75 squared minus that 0.75 squared, or 0.5625. So I have done my completing the square, and my last step here is to go back to my original equation and solve it. So now I take this completed square equation here. Remember that this is still equal to 2.5. Still equal to 2.5 from up above, and now I'm going to solve. So I'm going to solve first by adding this minus number to the other side. So plus 0.5625, which is going to give me, well, I'm going to do it on this side as well, 5625. So 2.5 plus 0.5625 is going to be 3.0625. And here, that goes away. So I now have x plus 0.75 squared equals that. If I take my calculator and I find the square root of 3.0625, that is 1.75. 1.75. So when I square root this side, that squared will go away. And then obviously I need to square root the other side as well. And I end up here at 1.75. And on the left, all I have is x plus 0.75. But of course, we have to remember that the number from my calculator is not the only option here. The other option is that this all equals a negative 1.75. So x plus 0.75 could also equal negative 1.75. In either case, to solve for x, I will subtract 0.75. Minus 0.75 there. I will minus 0.75 here. I will minus 0.75 there. And my two possible answers are 1 or negative 2.5. And this is all x equals 1 or 2.5. Okay. If you have questions about any of those four steps, the only thing that is different from what we have been doing before is step 2. Step 2 is what is different. This is what we added. Okay, we have to divide by the same number all across the board in order to complete the square. Then we just complete the square as we normally do. Now, your turn. I would like you to solve 3x squared minus 3x equals 10 by completing the square. I have done step 1 for you already. You do not have to do step 1. I've done it for you already. Okay, pause the video, take a look at this equation, solve it please, and then come back and I will show you the correct answer here. Okay, if I want to complete the square, I first need to divide off the 3. So x squared minus 1x is equal to 3.3 repeating. That can become x minus 0.5 squared minus 0.25. And that's now still equal to, bringing this back, 3.3 repeating. So I add 0.25 there. And I get square root of that. X minus 0.5 is equal to 1.89, or x minus 0.5 is equal to negative 1.89. So my final answer, x equals 2.39, or x equals negative 1.39. If you have any questions about that added wrinkle or about completing the square, please make a note to ask me in class tomorrow. That will be our last day of completing the square. We will move on to something else next week. That's all I have for you right now. Have a wonderful night.